You can't have generals of the army speaking like that.
The unpatriotic and what appears to be a sellout posture of defunding the SA Navy and the SANDF in general leaves me with a question of whether the people behind what I would like to call nonsense, if they are not busy with a mission to privatize the SA Navy and the SANDF.
First, it was General Mkwanazi. Now it's the Navy Chief. When senior security commanders start bypassing protocols and going directly to the media, that's not politics, it's a warning signal. And every South African should pay attention. We're witnessing something very unusual in South African democracy, where top security leaders no longer trust internal government systems. So they are now going to the public to talk about the issues that are taking place in that department. Recently, the South African Navy Chief, Vice Admiral, I'm trying to get his name right, Monde Lobese, publicly raised alarm over chronic underfunding in the Navy, in the South African Navy. He stated that South Africa is vulnerable to drug syndicates, human trafficking networks, and criminal cartels. And this is not a wild claim, because we already know that majority of drugs in South Africa enter through maritime routes. Well, he said all this in a gala event. However, this is not a normal statement. It's a warning. Hence, I think it's important that we break down this moment, what it means and how it connects to the Mkwanazi saga or Mkwanazi's allegations, and how this could indicate deeper collapse in South Africa's state institutions. Here's why this moment matters. The South African Navy protects 300,000 kilometers of coastline. So they secure trade routes, economic interests, and maritime borders. So underfunding of the Navy leads to all sorts of chaos, limited patrol hours, coastal lines open to organized crimes. And some of these weaknesses have been quite evident. Hence, I mentioned earlier that majority of the drugs in South Africa enter through maritime routes. So we already know that there is a challenge in the Navy. The Navy security isn't strong enough to filter out these illegal activities. Also, I firmly believe that the Navy Chief himself and probably other people in the Navy have raised these concerns to internal systems. So the moment the Navy Chief has to go to the media to tell the truth, that means that these internal systems have already failed. We are seeing this emerging pattern. This is how this story connects to the allegations which were made by Mkwanazi. I'm not even going to get into the July press conference, because I believe that most of us have been following that. So for those who might be living under a rock, Mkwanazi made allegations where he exposed internal corruption and political manipulation. What I want to highlight here is the government's reaction. After Mkwanazi had made those allegations and he had presented really solid evidence to support his claims, government officials came out saying that he's behaving like South Africa is some banana republic where you can call a press conference and say whatever you want. They were talking about his mannerism, how he was dressed, how the people who were standing there, the members of the task force, had rifles. They never bothered to argue the merits. They only attacked the procedure. Many of them were talking about protocol, that Mkwanazi didn't follow protocol. So when the truth is exposed, the government doesn't debate facts. They talk about procedure and protocols. The Navy Chief is facing the same criticism. He's not being criticized for being wrong. They're criticizing him for not using proper channels.
Are these people fermenting tendencies of coup d'etats? They start like this. When generals become politicians overnight.
And I'm going to say that I do get where this argument of protocols and proper channels stems from. But the hypocrisy here is the same politicians who are destroying these institutions are the ones demanding that people respect their protocols. I mean, when Fikile Mbalule was commenting on this, he mentioned that the chief of the Navy reports to the commander-in-chief, who is the president. And he's correct. Well, I'm not sure whether he reports to the commander-in-chief directly. I presume that to be the case. But the same president, who is expected to act on these matters, appointed the failed Minister of Basic Education, Minister Angie Mtshekga, to be the Minister of Defense.
The entire education system. Minister Nzimande has rightly emphasized that expanded
She could barely keep the Department of Education afloat, but she was taken to be the person who these great people who are serving us essentially submit to. And at least she had the necessary qualifications to be in the Department of Education. But here, when she was appointed last year, we all thought it was a joke. We all thought that maybe there will be some explanation afterwards. But I still fail to understand what this person is doing in that ministry. So clearly, the person who is expected to take action and fix these problems holds zero accountability. He doesn't care about expertise when employing these ministers, because some ministers don't even have matric, not to speak of other qualifications. And we all keep quiet as a country. So how do you preach protocol when the people responsible of enforcing these protocols are the ones sinking the ship? Again, I think that in a democratic country, these diplomatic channels are very necessary. But right now, where South Africa is at, these diplomatic channels have become meaningless. Many of these departments are dysfunctional. Reports are disappearing. Whistleblowers are getting punished and perpetrators are getting protected. Leadership posts are filled politically and not professionally. And you keep telling these people, such as the Chief of Navy, to stay away from politics, while you are the ones linking these vital departments to politics, because you are employing politicians who have no business being in those departments or in those ministries. So if these internal channels are broken, who are people supposed to run to? Professionals only go public when they've lost faith in their political leadership. The sad truth is, we have seen this in many African countries, where security chiefs started contradicting political elites in public. Let's not even go far. This was the first sign of collapse in Zimbabwe. That's essentially how power was taken from Mugabe. And I'm not trying to exaggerate anything. We just can't ignore the pattern that this is how military tension starts in countries where institutions collapse. So what we have in South Africa right now is that the political class is prioritizing loyalty over competence. Because if that wasn't the truth, Angie Mtshekga wouldn't be the Minister of Defense. Rather, Minister Angie Mtshekga wouldn't be the Minister of Defense. Senzo Mqunu, Shadrack Sibiya would have been fired a long time ago. So this pattern of political loyalty leads to a point where people who actually run these institutions speak out. And in a case such as this, you do not only lose public confidence, there's also international embarrassment at play. I mean, countries are probably looking at us now like, these people can't even afford the fence. Which again forces future security risks. So the issue here is not that the Navy chief broke protocol, it's that the protocol no longer works. If internal systems were still functional, he wouldn't need to say that in public. The fact that he did is a sign of institutional desperation. I would say that for now, South Africans need to stop focusing on protocols and all these other things and address the merits. Because these people are bringing up very serious matters. They are warning us openly that the state is failing. This is not a moment to ignore, it's a moment to wake up.